Welcome to the Berry-Tramel Show. We're in December. That means it's bowl season. No better guest than to chat with Nick Carparelli, the Executive Director of College Football's Bowl Association. It's bowl season, and Nick, this is a busy time for you. Bowls are always an interesting subject. Let me just get right to it. When I look at the bowls, the six major bowls in better shape than ever. The rest of the bowls under a little bit of siege with opt-outs, with the expanded playoff. What can you tell me about the status of the rest of the bowls schedule in college football?
Barry, bowl season is alive and well. There are 43 college football bowl games that are all very, very meaningful to the teams who participate in them. We have a 12-team playoff, which is fantastic. 135 FBS institutions. You know college football. Most of those schools can only dream about being in that top 12. The ones who maybe are in it occasionally are not going to be in it on a regular basis. They need something else to play for. I can't think of any major sport in college or professional where there's only 12 postseason opportunities. So college football needs more. I also think your comments are a little bit more perception than they are reality. Let's face it, outside of the six bowl games that are a part of the CFP national championship equation, all those other bowls never factored into the national championship. You never saw the national champion, whether it was the voting poll or whether it was two teams or four teams coming from those bowl games. So it's a little bit more of a perception issue than a reality. Schools have been going to bowl games for 100 years. Their fans, the student athletes have been enjoying a unique destination that they've probably never been to before. And they're a lot of fun. 3 million people watch the average bowl game outside of the CFP. And bowl games are going to be around for a long time.
What your comment about the television ratings?
I thought you were going to say I was correct, Barry.
No, well, your comment about the television ratings is very well made. The one thing that hasn't changed is people love to watch these things. What do you think it is? What is it that attracts so many eyeballs in beginning in mid-December until early January too? Whether it's the Alamo Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, the Gasparilla Bowl, it doesn't matter. What is it that attracts college football viewers?
Yeah, I think it's a number of things. I think part of it is the bowl brand, right? That you call something a bowl game, and you have the same matchup in that bowl game versus that same matchup in the regular season. More people are going to watch it in a bowl game. It has a little of a prestige to it. It's played at a time of year where people are home for the holidays. They're watching TV, and I think the matchups are always intriguing. You often see two teams playing each other who would not normally schedule each other during the regular season. They're playing in a destination they wouldn't normally go. Fans from that destination get to see a level of football that they can't possibly see throughout the year. So people turn on the TV. They look for a bowl game. They don't even know what bowl game it's going to be, but they find one almost every night for 3 weeks. It's between two teams that maybe they heard of, but they didn't get a chance to watch. So they watch. It's compelling television, and the games deliver. They're fun to watch, and you see a lot of great performances every year.
I've been to, I don't know, probably 8 different bowl games the last 5 years. Last year, the Alamo Bowl was sensational. It was virtually full in San Antonio. Texas Bowl was solidly attended between OSU, Oklahoma State, and Texas A&M. How good a shape are a lot of these bowl games in terms of the local interest? Some are clearly made for TV events, but a lot still draw, as you said, a lot of tourists from the visiting teams, well supported by the host city. What kind of shape are we looking at in terms of just the in-house product of these bowl games?
Yeah, they're in great shape, and you made a good point that some are built for TV, some really engage the community. Every bowl game is different, and they're all unique, right? So you can't turn on a bowl game and say, "Oh, the stand's half empty. That bowl game is not successful." Well, you don't know, the business model that game is built on, right? Whether it's the title sponsorship and the other sponsorship payments that the bowl receives, whether it's the money from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. If there's 20,000 fans in a stadium for a bowl game, people say that there's nobody there. But in most communities, during December, when people aren't traveling to go on vacation. 20,000 people in a community is a big deal. To stay in hotels, go to restaurants, et cetera. And then the television audience is huge. So there's a lot of factors that go into making a bowl season successful. You can't look at any one factor and judge.
When we started chatting and I said bowl games were under siege, what I really meant was this. We have a rash, more so than in the past, of coaching changes involving teams that are in bowl games. And we have star players often not choosing not to play. Is there anything that we can do? There have been things talked about with, some NIL incentives, been some calendar suggestions. Is there anything we can do for those two particular problems? I know bowl games don't like coaching changes. They'd prefer not to have a game with an interim coach. Is there anything that can be done to alleviate those two situations?
Yeah, that's a good question. And let me start by saying this. When you look at the bowl games and some of the issues they face, the problem is not with bowl games in the bowl system. People love them. The problem is with the infrastructure around it. And the problems aren't unique to bowl games either. They're affecting all of college athletics throughout the year, right? You mentioned the NIL, you mentioned the transfer portal. There's merit to both of those concepts, but they've been completely mismanaged from the get-go, right? There's no structure around NIL. It's the rules around NIL are being broken by everyone every day. NIL is pay for play at these schools, and it's not supposed to be that. Come July 1st of this year, there will be pay for play. I think the role of NIL of the NIL collectives at schools will change. In some schools, it'll go away because anybody donating to the collective, the athletic department's going to say, no, we need you to donate to the university so we can pay these players directly. And then I think the evolution is going to be that these student athletes are now going to be under contract. You want to come to this school for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. You're going to sign a contract like professional athletes do, like people in all walks of life do, and you'll be held accountable. Here's what we expect. Bare minimum, you play in the games, and you get paid. Very simple concept. I think we're going to evolve to that very quickly.
Let's shift gears to a singular focus, which is the Oklahoma Sooners began a new era this year in the Southeastern Conference, and the bowl experience is different in the SEC. In the Big 12, the bowls got to pick. Pecking order, they got to pick. They want Iowa State, they want Texas Tech, they want Oklahoma. They picked. The SEC is more nuanced. The SEC is sort of a broker between what the schools desire, what the bowls desire, for those 6 schools in the mid-range of SEC bowls. What's been your experience on how that has transpired? Has it been good for the bowls? Has it been good for the schools? Does it generally work out to where everybody is fairly satisfied?
Is it good for those people? I guess it depends on who you're talking to and what year you're talking to them. It's a complicated process, and every conference, as you pointed out, Big 12 and the SEC do it differently, but all 10 of them do it a little bit differently. And there's the extreme, as you mentioned, where a bowl negotiates for a selection order, and it's where their turn. When it's their turn, they pick, right? Most conferences are more similar to the SEC, where there's a lot of nuance. The bowls will give the conference their list. One team, 1, 2, 3. Here's our preference. The conference will collect that from all the bowls. The conference will talk to their institutions, and they try to be matchmaker, right? You might not get your first choice. You might get your second choice if you're a bowl game, but it might make 3 other bowl games and 3 other institutions happy, right? So it's a complicated process. Mark Womack and obviously Commissioner Sankey at the SEC do a great job of trying to juggle a lot of different agendas. Does it make everybody the happiest? It never does, but I think they do a pretty good job of maximizing people's happiness.
In your experience, Nick, when you look at the preferences of bowls for who they get, how much do they prioritize geography? How much do they prioritize freshness? And a school's never been to that bowl, or it's been a long number of years. What are sort of the priorities for most of these bowls that we're talking about?
Barry, it's all those things, right? And they change from year to year. An institution that might be desirable one year might not be the next, right? So Have they been to a bowl game in a while? What level of bowl game is their fan base excited about the season that was just played, or are they disappointed? Right? Did the coach just get fired, or did they just hire a coach and he finished year one and people are happy with the trajectory? Geography is always a factor. I think the best example to watch this year is Nebraska. Nebraska is known in the bowl business and probably in other ways as one of the best fan bases in terms of showing up. In addition, Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game in 8 years. I happen to know a lot of Nebraska fans, and they just want to go anywhere. So the bowl game that's lucky enough to get Nebraska this year is going to be very happy. Now, let's project 5 years from now, and Nebraska goes to the playoff and they make it to the finals and lose. The next year they have high aspirations and they go 6-6, just like this year. Might have a different feel to it, right? But this year, Nebraska is going to be a hot team.
When I look at the bowl schedule, I go back to the days when, we had the 4 New Year's Day bowls, and then we had, I think, maybe 6 bowls. Sun, Gator, that Liberty Bowl, that family of bowl games. Now, the bowl season has mushroomed exponentially. I see a lot more games before Christmas, which used to be a pre-Christmas bowl game in the old days was a novelty. How has that worked out? How have the bowls received the pre-Christmas schedule? I think the Las Vegas Bowl, which is shaping up to become a fairly prominent bowl, is pre-Christmas. Does that work well for the bowls? Does that work well for the schools? Does that work well for the fan bases? Tell me about pre-Christmas bowl games.
Yeah, so the evolution of that, as you pointed out, there didn't always used to be 43 bowl games. And when there were fewer bowl games, you can play them all from Christmas to New Year's. They fit on the calendar, right? As we grew in terms of the number of bowl games, which, by the way, no one is forcing a community to host a bowl game or forcing a team to go. It's a market-driven system, so it's a little bit telling that people want these bowl games. We got to a point where we said, all right, some of these bowl games, something's got to give. Some of these bowl games are going to be pre-Christmas. Early on, that was looked as a negative. Most of the pre-Christmas games are some of the 6-6 teams, maybe 7-5. Las Vegas Bowl is a little bit of an outlier in terms of the quality of the game and the level of the game, the fact that it's pre-Christmas. But I think a lot of the types of teams that are going to that bowl game love the fact that they can get 10, 14 extra days of practice, play their bowl game, and go home for the holidays. So for those types of teams, it's attractive. For the teams that have 8, 9, 10 wins and have had great seasons, different destination, different history and tradition of the bowl game, different quality of opponent, longer practice, go home for the holiday, then come back and play the bowl game. That's more attractive. So I think it's taken a little time for people to get their arms around it, but I think we're at the point in time now where there are pre-Christmas bowls for pre-Christmas bowl type teams, and it works well for them. And then the post-Christmas works well for everybody else.
When I look, another thing I look at the bowl schedule is the dominance of ESPN. In fact, ESPN, I think, owns, I can't remember, 17, 20, something, whatever.
17 is correct.
They own a big chunk of these bowl games. And they telecast almost all of them. A few select are on other networks. Would one thing I've always thought about college football is the more networks involved, the better. Are we going to see more and more networks get involved in the bowl rights business, or is this still going to be an ESPN dominated business?
2 thoughts on that. So I go back to your earlier question of how healthy is the bowl system? How much interest is there in bowl games? I think you and I know ESPN is in the business of making money. And the fact that they go out of their way to inventory and bid on and televise 40 of the 43 bowl games, the fact that they started bowl games, 17 of them, they own and operate them themselves, pretty good indication that they have some value. Now, in terms of the multiple networks, absolutely. You look at the NFL, who controls all their games. They have multiple networks promoting their league, promoting each of the individual teams, promoting the game of professional football. It would be a good thing if we had more networks involved at a greater level. But the fact that ESPN wins the contract and wins the rights fee to as many bowl games as they do, that's not a bad thing either.
As executive director of this massive enterprise, which is conducted in a short amount of time, you can't get to all these games. How many bowl games do you get to in a typical December?
Good question. So last year I went to 9, which is a heavy lift. I got the worst case of the flu after that, so I'm going to cut it back. I think I'm only going to 7 this year, which is still a lot. Year to year, Barry, I try to go to games I haven't been to in a while. In my previous roles, I was, I ran college sports marketing at Under Armour, and we outfitted college football programs. So I'd go to their bowl games. Prior to that, I was the deputy commissioner of the Big East, ran Big East football, did bowl deals to send our teams to bowl games. So obviously, I would go to those. And then when I was at Syracuse and I was at Notre Dame, as part of those programs, we were fortunate to go to bowl games. So I need to do an official count, but my rough estimate this offseason was I've been to over 150 bowl games in my life, 30 different bowl games. So I'm not sure if too many people can match that.
Well, I certainly can. I probably, between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, I've probably been to 20 different bowl games. Give me a couple of pleasant surprises. I'm not asking you to rank your bowl games, but for somebody here in Oklahoma, we've been to the all the big ones, of course, but also the Alamo, the Texas, the Liberty, all the traditional Big 12 bowl games. Give us a couple of bowl games that would surprise people on how much fun they are, and sort of need to get on their bucket list for a good bowl
Yeah.
game to check out sometime.
Well, as you mentioned, you have to be careful. It's like picking your favorite child, right? You're not supposed to have one. The ones that they're all fun. They're all unique. That's what makes bowl games great, right? If you were a 5 year, redshirted, and you were a 5 year guy, and your school went to 5 bowl games, you'd want to go somewhere where you can go to the beach, somewhere where you could have barbecue, someplace in a major city, East Coast, West Coast, do it all, right? So I don't know if it's a surprise that for an early bowl game, actually late this year, the Bahamas Bowl was a lot of fun. That's when people turn the TV on. Not many people are there. I don't think the players care if anybody's there. They're there. The beach is there. They're playing football. Like, who cares? In fact, leave me alone when I go to the Bahamas. The Pinstripe Bowl is near and dear to my heart. I helped start that game with the Yankees. People think about, well, it's cold there. People dream about playing in Yankee Stadium. New York City over the holidays, the student athletes, they see the Christmas tree. They go to the 9/11 memorial. The captains and the head coaches ring the stock exchange bell. Those are once in a lifetime experiences. Really, really cool. There's not a bad bowl out there, Barry, I promise you.
When you think about I think you said you've been to at least 30 bowls. What's your favorite bowl experience or favorite of incident that's happened to you? When you think about bowl memories, what springs to mind?
Yeah, I would say, being invited to be on the podium and ring the opening bell of the stock exchange was pretty cool. I was really taken back by all the, stock brokers out there watching us, like excited we were there, and then they're about to make or lose a lot of money in the minutes ensuing. The Sun Bowl really stands out because of the great hospitality there. Like, I can't tell you how many people said, "Well, gee, El Paso. I don't know if I want to go to El Paso." And then they leave going, "That was the greatest thing I've ever seen." Literally every person that they came in contact with in the city of El Paso couldn't be nicer, couldn't be happier you're there. We'll run a mile and back for you to fetch something if you need it. Food is great. Really cool experience at the Sun Bowl.
When you brought up Sun Bowl, I was at Sun Bowl 2009 Sun Bowl, Oklahoma Stanford, and one of the things I appreciate about the Sun Bowl is one of the great things about college football, which is tradition. I mean, a lot of these bowls, the new bowls, are fairly new. Some are less than 10 years old. Some are 10 to 20. But when you look at the Sun Bowl, I think the Sun Bowl began in the 40s, maybe 1946. I might even be
1935. It's the second oldest
35.
bowl game.
Well, there you go. We're talking 90, almost 90 years of Sun Bowls. How much pride does a city take when it's got this long-standing bowl game? This isn't a startup by millennials. I mean, this is a 90-year tradition. How much pride some of these cities take in these events that they put on year after year after year.
They all take tremendous pride. El Paso, Texas, the maximum amount of pride. In fact, it's the biggest sporting event in the city of El Paso every year. You land in the airport, and if you look out your window as it's pulling up to the gate in the airport, the back of the airport where all the workers are on the planes, it says El Paso, Texas, home of the Sun Bowl. And when you go to a game, it's such a beautiful setting. The stadium built in the mountains, and their business model is unique. A lot of bowls are. It's really important that they pick the right team that's going to travel the most amount of fans to support the game, whether it's geography or how good the season was, etc. The Sun Bowl sells 80% of their tickets locally. Wow. So 80% of the tickets are sold before anybody knows who's coming there. They're all people of El Paso that are just looking to see two teams play that they couldn't possibly see otherwise. That's really cool.
Well, Nick, this has been fun. I'm actually I'm a college football historian, or present myself to be, and I grew up watching bowl games, and I still get a charge out of bowl games. I know all the problems associated with college football finances, but I think it's cool that we still have this grand tradition that goes back 100, 90, 80, 70, whatever years. And I appreciate the efforts you do to keep this thing going and thriving, and hope to see you at a bowl game this coming weeks.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Barry. Really appreciate talking to you.
You bet. Thanks a lot. Nick Carparelli from the College Football Bowl Association. We'll talk more college football next week. The Tramel Show. Tune in to TulsaWorld.com and every day in the Tulsa World.